All right, we're on.
Yeah, this is the Seton Rivals podcast where, yes, we come at you each and every week during football season. But during the off season, we take a little break, but there is so much bubbling that an episode like this is well merited. We've been doing this for a long time. We cover 8 schools. Wow, 3 different head coaches are going to take the reins come next season. But you know what the constant is? The constant is Ralph Amsden. He's a guy I've known really since I got off the plane in New York City, more or less, many, many years ago. Ralph, Happy New Year. How are you, my man?
Happy New Year, Brett. It's good to see you. January is usually the month where we really kind of slow things down and get our bearings, but things aren't slowing down in the CUSD. We're getting a little refresh. It's a
Yes.
brand new era for Seatown Rivals, brand new era for the Chandler Unified School District.
It is it's weird because you generally expect a coaching change here and there throughout the state. Nothing lasts forever, obviously, but at the same time, you figure last year when there were 2 openings, we were like, wow, that's a lot. This year, 3. So it's definitely it's a challenge, and I kind of want to jump right into these various challenges. And folks, normally we have a specific order that we like to talk about our teams, but because it's the off season and teams are doing some different things, we're going to jump around a lot. But the Casteel Colts, they take the cake. They get the leadoff spot for great reason. I'll be the first to say that they're probably the school that I've been least connected to over the years in the last, we'll say, since the doors opened. It's been a bit challenging, but they've got new leadership in there. Craig Luschner, the AD, he's coming over from Eastmark. New football coach who I was really impressed with. Ralph, his name is Joe Bushman. He comes from the college ranks, actually, Lewis and Clark College in Oregon. He was there for 3 years, but prior to that, he dominated the Oregon high school football season, Clackamas High School. And what's weird is when I hear the term Clackamas, I think of, I believe that's where Tanya Harding trained. The figure skater back in the day. That's like the only reason I know Clackamas, but
That's wild.
we've done some research, and I mean, he's a winner. He's a winner. He's overwhelmed like any new coach should be at any new program. But Ralph, all indications seem like he's the guy. He definitely he's got the winning gene about him, which is terrific.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious. I know that they met with parents this week, and if you've had your kids at Casteel, you've known one coach,
Right.
for the last 3 years. If you had multiple kids go through Casteel, or if you had your kids go to the junior high associated with Casteel, like your expectation has kind of always been that that this was going to be your coach. And so I'm really curious to know how the meeting went, because the 7th and 8th graders who are at Casteel Junior High, their parents would have been part of this meeting with
Yes.
Joe Bushman. And it's one of those things that we've heard, that the parents at Casteel, that I don't know, they've garnered the parents at Casteel. And I think a big part of this was because Brad Sesmat's son was at Casteel, so he's very close to the program. But a lot of what Brad Sesmat has put out, talking directly to parents about having proper expectations, has come from his experience being a Casteel parent, right? And so he's never called anybody out by name. He's never said anything like that. But a lot of his experience is reflected in his writing. And I think it's been pretty natural for people to assume that, all right, well, maybe Casteel parents are being a little bit extra, right? So I'm curious to see how he's going to be received. He's got college football coaching experience. Lewis and Clark, one of my groomsmen in my wedding played basketball at
awesome.
Lewis and Clark. Went to Sedona High School, played basketball at Lewis and Clark, and so it's something that I'm familiar with. And if you think that if you don't think that somebody who was affiliated with an Oregon small college can have a big effect on Arizona high school football, well, then you don't believe in Sean Aguano because
Right. That's
he's
true.
he's a D3 running back out there.
Yes.
And so, I'm really, really curious to see how this goes. I know that he was also one of the finalists for the Chandler job.
Okay.
And so
Interesting. Okay.
it'll be kind of interesting to watch what he does with what he's been given and what Ty Wisdom does with what he's been given and kind of compare the two.
Yeah, I just have really good vibes with Bushman. I mean, he was very receptive. I mean, he didn't know me from
Right.
anyone, and just reaching out, and he was like, "Hey, it'd be great to meet you." I explained a little bit about what we've been doing consistently and just how he's going to be hit with a lot of media. A typical
Yeah.
Friday night sideline, he is going to have a lot more media covering his games. It's not obviously just us, but in general. And I think he's up for the challenge. He's certainly welcoming. And at this point, that's really all we can ask. The one thing that jokingly I did say, and I certainly hope it's for the better, I was like, I think Casteel needs somebody who's going to move the needle one way or the other. And hopefully it's obviously on the winning side. And he's just very jovial. And I think he's up for the task. And I mean, we'll see how his approach to 7-on-7s go and how spring ball and the jamboree and all of that. So it's going to be a good he's got a lot on his plate, but he certainly isn't shying away from anything or anybody.
So he was at Clackamas for a very long time, because you might say, okay, 3 years at Lewis and Clark, what is he gonna, how long is he gonna stick around at Casteel? But he was coaching high school football in Oregon for quite a long time. In fact, the 2010 season, they went 0-10. 0-10. And then by 2013, which is, when you and I started podcasting, he's 10-3, 8-3, 9-3, 10-3, and then back-to-back seasons of 14-0 and 12-1, which allowed him to move up to the collegiate ranks. And so, this is obviously somebody who has had the ability to turn around a program, and that's what that's what's going to be necessary for Casteel. They don't need a full rebuild, but they do have to establish some type of identity, because it feels like everybody else has had the ability to do that. And what if you were to say, what has Casteel been since moving up to 5A, 6A? It's tough, because they've had some talent at the quarterback position, and they've had some overachieving wide receivers, but as far as a team identity, I wouldn't really know what to say about them.
Right. I think there almost really isn't. It's that needle is stuck. And even joking around with him, I was like, Coach, there are a lot of schools that would love to be in this position where each year you finish 6-4 during the regular season, you pull off a playoff win, and you end 7-5. That's very good for a lot of schools, but in this district, and he's well aware of the CUSD, he wants to be here. That's for sure. He's heard great things about the area and the whole 9 yards. And so, yeah, I think he's all in, and I think he's all in for the long run. So it'll be good to really get to see how the spring goes, and kind of what we hear from feedback from parents. So yeah, it's good stuff down the road. So I go from one school to another. I visited with the Perry Pumas, and I got to see Cale Snyder throw, and I got to see the team work out. And there were assistant coaches from some D1 schools, but the very next day, Kyle Whittingham comes to town and offers Cale Snyder, the Utah head coach. So really good to see what Joseph Ortiz is doing and what Cale Snyder's doing, as he's got 2 more full years there. And Ralph, I think the one thing that we are very comfortable in saying, the Perry Pumas are in a good place.
They are. And they have a really cool challenge in front of them, a D1 level quarterback who they need to support. It's been a minute since Chubba, right? It's They've had good players at the position, but we watched last year when Perry had put enough on film, and teams like Brophy were kind of able to exploit getting pressure on Cale Snyder. The season made a little bit of a turn. Now, they also did some incredible, excellent things last season that you have to maintain. They beat Chandler. All right, well, now you got to keep doing it.
Right. That's right.
And at the same time, you have to protect your quarterback and cater the offense to a way that's going to help everybody succeed. So it'll be interesting to see. The program is growing in prestige. It's growing in success. We want to see it grow in sustainability. You also have to be able to make the adjustments that are necessary to make sure that that Cale Snyder himself is ready to face pressure, and that the school is ready to adapt to make sure that you play to his strengths, because you can come out like you're shot out of a rocket, but when people figure you out, they figure you out,
Right.
And it's just a constant game of adjustments, and I'm excited to see what adjustments Perry makes to maintain the ground they've gained and to continue to inch toward being a championship contender.
Absolutely, and staying healthy is a big thing. They lost a couple guys on defense last year, which may or may not have made a difference in that Brophy game, but the second Brophy game, we'll say. But yeah, overall, I think they're in a good place. And like you said, they're already they've taken some steps under Ortiz. Now it's time to try to jump up to that next rung. And we know that Ortiz certainly wants that. The running joke is, hey, as long as you're available, you'll be my partner for the 5A broadcast. And he's like, his goal is not to be my partner. This way he can get after a deeper postseason run. So Coach Ortiz, always great visiting you. Me and Ralph are big fans of yours and the Police, as well as everything you guys are doing. Who would think that Chris McDonald would be the dean of CUSD coaches? It's
unbelievable.
Yeah, I texted him that, and I don't think he got it immediately. He was like, well, what do you mean by that? I was like, you've been the head coach longer than anybody else in the district. And I think it's hitting home with him. It's I'll certainly say this past week to 10 days has been big for the school. Noah Roberts picking up some major offers, USC, of course, being one of them. Overall, we talked about Perry being in a good place. The Basha Bears are in a good place. I mean, state runner-up, just overall, they got QB1 returning. They've got Noah Roberts coming back. The lines consistently are built for the long haul. So I think the Bears are going to be okay. Again, this is January, and we're not going to see any kickoffs till August. But overall, Basha is still in the upper echelon.
Yeah, and then when they got some kids that missed parts or all of the season last year, they're going to be available as well. I think Derek Kennard's kid's going to be healthy. Like they've got one of the things that I was kind of anticipating is a Detroit Lions.
Also. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Trey Knox. Yeah, but I was kind of anticipating a Detroit Lions style breakup of that coaching staff. That is not based on inside information. It was just, if I was running a school in the Chandler Unified School District, then I would look to the school that's the most successful and say, like, hey, do you think Ryan Felker wants to go from OC to head coach? It would not have surprised me if people moved on to the next level of what they were doing off of that staff, much in the way that Chris McDonald moved off of the Hamilton staff to be the head coach at Maricopa and then Basha. And, that didn't necessarily happen. And so, and they got kind of a bad taste in their mouth from losing in the way that they did. They felt like if they could run that game back again, sans injury, sans a couple of calls, that they would have had an opportunity to win it. So I think they're going to come into this season extremely hungry. They've got the talent to do some really special things. And yeah, I mean, it's not like Chris McDonald came to Basha unfamiliar with the Chandler Unified School District due to his time at Hamilton. So not only is he the dean, he is like the elder statesman.
Right. That's right. That's true.
It's crazy to think about. And it's just that's the level of turnover. It's a tough job. He'll tell you as much as anyone. It takes a lot out of you. It's tough to maintain being in that position for a long time and staying fresh and staying interested. And I anticipate this Basha team being very fresh and very hungry.
Absolutely. And assuming that week 1 is Basha playing at Nebraska, I'll say to Bears Nation, I want to go with you guys. I want to get on that plane. I want to cover you guys. I've never been to the state of Nebraska, so it'll be cool because obviously the Nebraska high school team came here last year. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, we're expecting some big things from the Basha Bears.
I was curious if they would maintain that scheduling given the reason that they scheduled that game in the first place is that Ty Wisdom was
that's
the
true.
head coach out there.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how the rest of the spring goes if they keep that game intact or not. That's a great point. I did not even think about that, and you lead me right into Ty Wisdom, who was the head coach over at the high school in Nebraska, who's Mallard South. Is that the name I'm thinking of?
Mallard South, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I hate just saying the high school in Nebraska. They have a name. They have
only one.
Yeah. Mallard South and Ty Wisdom. Ty Wisdom is the head coach of the Chandler Wolves now. I'll say I was surprised that Chandler High School moved as quickly as they did. This wasn't something that dragged out. I mean, they obviously had some people in mind, Ty Wisdom being one of them. Happened quick. Ty Wisdom, of course, is no stranger to Arizona high school football. He coached at Horizon. He coached at Desert Vista. Now he gets his chance to lead a CUSD team, a program that has a very deep history now. We'll see. I mean, we know that he's structuring his assistants, and he's got to build that to his liking. And it seems like it's a mix of old and new. So we'll see what goes on there. The one thing that we do know, Ralph, with the Wolves and the way their season ended, it ended with a lot of injuries. They lost Will Menzel. He's back. Their running back gave it a go in that last Perry game, but he wasn't 100%. So it's he's got a nice freshman sophomore class to build on.
Yeah. So Ty Wisdom, if you're familiar with Arizona high school football, he turned Horizon around. I think if given the proper opportunity to do so, would have done the same for Desert Vista.
Right, because I believe, if I'm correct, they went from winless the year before he got there, and I thought they lost in the first round of the playoffs in his lone year. So that's a big step right there.
Yeah, and I think they beat Mountain Point as well.
Sounds right. Okay.
It's a very big deal. If you're, if you're out in Ahwatukee, that game matters quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was part of a staff that helped make Valley Vista competitive. And then he took a team that wasn't winning it in Mallard South in Nebraska and took them to a title. So, I mean, he took Horizon from, I think he came in when they were 0-10 and took them to the Open. The Open is kind of the standard for Chandler. The one time they don't make it, they turn over the coaching staff. So it's weird because this isn't a rebuild as he's often been used to. This is something else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really curious to see how he handles it.
Yes.
It's interesting because I think that maybe you could pick out a coach or two over the last 12, 13 years of doing this that you don't see eye to eye with or you don't get along with. I certainly have had one, maybe more, but one that I'm aware of. And even we had one in the district in Bernie Buskin, who was at Basha at the time that I didn't really know how to feel about. Ty Wisdom is an interesting one because our former co-host and him didn't really see eye to eye during his time at Horizon. And now we're going to be working closely covering the program. So I hope, there's definitely no hard feelings on our side. Mm-hmm. I think the issue was, picking sides in a multiple quarterback battle, which I had no interest in. But I got to go out to Flagstaff and see Ty Wisdom coach against a very talented Higley team and take them to the brink. I watched Ty Wisdom beat Notre Dame Prep at Scott Bemis Field. And so, I've seen him do work in person several times.
Wow.
Chandler it's not precious to me. It's the high school I went to. Mm-hmm. But it was very, very cool to see them come up under Jim Ewan and Sean Aguano and see that maintained and taken to the next level by Rick Garrettson. I want to see Chandler do well, just like anybody else does. And I'm fascinated by this. I'm sure you are too.
I am. I think what fascinates me is while all schools out there, whether it's CUSD or within the state, preach family and togetherness, I'll say there isn't a tighter family, at least for what I perceive and what we've kind of been a part of, than Chandler. I mean, they preach that internal brotherhood quite a bit. And so that's where it's going to be interesting because it's been such continuity for so long under two coaches.
It has. And when you are successful, people want what you have. So they've lost, Brock Farrell. They, the George Hawthorne, they lost a bunch of people to head coaching gigs elsewhere who have had experience at Chandler. Our friend Chris Chick passed away. Rick Garrettson stepped down. Sean Aguano got hired to ASU. It gets tough to maintain that stuff over time. So already wisdom is plugged in with the Richardsons and he's got his DBs coach and so he's in tune with what they have going on there with the track program.
Good. Very good.
I'm fascinated by this. I think my first thought when Ty Wisdom took the job is, Will Mensel's going to love this. So I don't know. I think it's going to be it's going to be a fun experiment. I'm fascinated by it.
I'm looking forward to getting to know him sometime in the next, I'll say over the spring. Certainly he's a name who can coach and he's in our district now. So yes, he's a guy who we definitely want to learn more about. That's for sure. Next on the docket, the Hamilton Huskies. And folks, I'm going to say there's really not a lot to talk about football-wise with them. I mean, they made the open semifinal. They lost to ultimately the two-time defending champ. I think that coach has them in the right place. So from a football standpoint, not a lot going on, but the school and their wrestling coach has made a lot of waves over the last couple of months for some big reasons. Anthony Robles, Mesa High alum, Mesa former wrestling coach, doing some great things at Hamilton now. The movie Unstoppable, I mean, the star power in that movie, Don Cheadle and Jennifer Lopez, really cool. Michael T. Williamson played one of his buddies at the airport. I got to see the film, Ralph. It's well done. It is just very, very well done.
That's awesome, man. This is the first Arizona high school related film, Arizona high school and college related film that has come out since the Carl Hayden robotics one with George. Okay. This is one of my favorites. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. My son he joined the wrestling team. My middle son joined the wrestling team this year. And so I'm looking forward to sitting down and watching it with him. I saw that it was still in the top 10 on Prime this last week. So I'm looking forward to adding to the numbers a little bit. And it'll be fun to see you get out there and interview Anthony Robles about just that process and what Hamilton has going on as a wrestling program, because he made that decision to jump ship, come to Hamilton, and there must be something special about that program that makes him want to be a part of it. So really look forward to having a relationship with him and getting to know him as a coach as we expand into covering other sports as we used to do.
Absolutely. You will love the film. There is a scene in which you'll be like, oh, that's funny. Robles and the Mesa High School wrestling coach were sitting in the football bleachers just talking about life. Hey, which direction do you want to go? And the football field is in front of them. That was not Mesa High School. That was not Mesa High School. It didn't even look like Mesa High School. I mean, overall,
got the purple and yellow everywhere.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was the bleachers like saguaro, like the brick bleachers, and it was just looked more like a college type of scenario. So that's the one thing that I think, Ralph, when you see it, you'll be like, wow, the movie is trying to portray a lot, but that's not Mesa High School, especially not in 2008 or 7 when he was in high school. So yeah, it's
I wonder if there was any No, there couldn't have been. But one of my favorite Mesa High alums, Deuce Latui, the big monster center who was Matt Leinert's. No, it definitely wouldn't have been because he was Matt Leinert's center
Oh,
when USC went to back-to-back natties. So, but I'm sure they're aware of each other. Mesa's another one of those very tight-knit communities.
sure. No, it's good stuff. You will definitely enjoy the movie. Valley Christian. Say the boys basketball team is playing well. They just continue to stack state championship after state championship. They're the top seed again. I mean, the playoffs don't start for another, well, February is almost upon us, another 10 days or so. But what Greg Hagsma is doing over there is phenomenal from a football standpoint. We're going to get into some of these regions shortly from a football standpoint, but Coach Hagsma and Valley Christian, props to what you guys are doing. And Ralph, it's fair to say small schools have they've got our heart. I mean, we can talk the whole Chandler Hamilton stuff all we want, which is great, but there's something about them and Seton Catholic that makes this thing go.
I thought you were going to bring up Valley Christian to bring up the fact that Dominic Zavada outscored Alabama.
Yes, he did. I totally forgot about it. You're right. Yes, he
Michigan
did.
kicker, former Valley Christian kicker. Yes. Valley Christian's got another kicker out by me, out at Gardner Webb, outside Charlotte, North Carolina. I might pop in on him, do an interview. But yeah, I mean, that Dominic Zavada's performance at Michigan the last 2 years has been a blast because it's just like, oh, Chandler, Arizona, out here producing monstrous athletes. So he's probably going to go into next year as maybe the top kicker in all of college football, which is
Lou Grozo Award. Yeah, that'd be great. No, that really is. He totally slipped my mind. I was so in tune with hoops that yes, we forget that they do produce quality football guys. That's for sure. Seton Catholic, Karen Self, all-time winningest coach. She's doing her thing. And Ralph, you and I talked about a week ago, shortly after she broke the record. There were so many people there. I did not know who they were in a sense of, obviously, Charlie Turner-Thorne, her former coach, ASU esteemed coach. She was there to see because they had a big celebration afterwards. But there were more 6-foot women that I did not know. And it was just weird because you think about the amount of young ladies who now have children of their own, who are not girls, who are women. It was a true celebration. And the AD, Jim Shoebridge, he's just a terrific guy. I've really gotten to be in tune with what they're doing, football and basketball, over the last handful of months.
And my assumption is you probably got to see our one-time assistant Lindsay Taylor out there, 6'7", former.
She's good people. She's definitely good people. So,
she was when I was at Chandler. She was in the middle of winning back-to-back titles with the women's hoop team at Chandler, and our freshman boys team would practice against them sometimes, and it was miserable. But no, I just it's really, really cool to see the community get together to celebrate Karen Self. She's been nothing but fantastic the whole way through, and for her to just be at the same school as long as she's been there. She's a legend. She deserves it. It was so cool that you got to be out there and be part of that.
And I think what's impressed me about her is she's just very humble. She's not flashy at all. She just goes about her business, and she's affected a lot of people's lives. So Coach Self, continue what you're doing. We are 100% behind you. Last but not least, as we start our football talk, ACP, the Knights. I don't know what to say about what's going on, in a sense that, yes, they're in the hunt for a new football coach. Steve Vaught, he stepped down. Where I'm having a problem/issue with is this is a school on the field that's trending upwards. You figure 2023, they make the playoffs. 2024, they make it to Desert Mountain State, whatever we want to call it, where ASU plays. They played for a 4A championship.
Yeah.
Looking for a new coach. I'm going to say to ACP Nation, whoever's part of that nation, you have a great thing going. You've got the resources. You've got talent. You're in a premier district. I don't know what's happening, but this is a good job, I think.
I'm bummed about this one. I don't have any inside information. I almost didn't want to reach out to Coach Vaught just to learn. If he's just ready to move on, cool. He did a fantastic job. They should be grateful. Built on what Myron Bluford started out there.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing about ACP that we've always praised is that they've had continuity, which, you know, and they've grown rapidly, and now they're just a regular sized school,
sure,
you know, and they had all this success this year. They have one of the better schematic coaches in the entire state. And I had said Chandler Unified School District doesn't rob Peter to pay Paul, but the first phone call I'm making if I'm Chandler High is to find out if Stephen Vaught wants to come home. And so if I say that I have confidence in him to take the Chandler job, then you know how I feel about him as a coach in general.
Sure.
So my hope is this isn't a program that's kind of gotten too big for their britches, too many cooks in the kitchen, too many voices.
Right.
That's my hope. I don't know what's going on. I can't think of a better coach for ACP than Stephen Vaught.
Right.
But
because he did a great job delegating. I mean, his assistants. So, I mean, think about this. The school was so tight, his coaching staff, we did the interviews on the podcast with his assistants. We left Vaught out of it. We had Schaefer and Ortiz and Cody Bartz, the OC, DC, and special teams coordinator. That's how great that coaching staff is/was. I'd love if, and I'll say Robert Ortiz is probably the more vocal of the three. I'd love if he became the head coach. This way you keep that continuity. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but it's worrisome to have a school that is a winning program going through three coaches in 3 years.
And as it was pointed out to me by one of our listeners, all 4 4A schools that were in the semifinals last year, coaching change.
Kay Solomon stepped down. That's right.
As did Pat Nugent.
Yuma Catholic and Micah. Wow. I did not even think about that. Interesting.
It just goes to show it's tough. It's a tough gig. And now at Yuma Catholic and Snowflake, those are longtime head coaches. Yeah. Micah Brown was a new school. They'd only had one coach, but they have a system set up where, you know, their athletic director is a legendary Tucson high school coach. Their principal's a legendary Tucson high school coach. So that, you know, they got all that stuff in-house. Does ACP trust that it has what it needs in-house? And I know you've advocated for that. I'm just trying to get to the point where I can put on a happy face for all of these schools that are bringing in coaches that we don't know, that got rid of coaches that we do know that we did like.
Right. No,
and I want all these schools to be successful, but it's tough because now 3 times in one episode, I'm like, well, but I liked this guy, but I liked this guy, but I like this guy. I want the replacement to be good and to build on what they did as well. But I'm like anybody else, I'm not the biggest fan of change if it's completely unnecessary. And so
correct.
I thought Coach Vaught, and a big part of this is Cody Cameron selling me on Coach Vaught while he was still at Chandler. I think he's one of the best football minds in the state.
Absolutely.
And I wish.
Because heck, they went to they took that nice road trip out to Indiana. I mean, that's elevating a program. I mean, you figure they started in Indiana and they ended at Sun Devil Stadium. Teams would love to have seasons like that.
Yeah.
And win all your games in between.
Right.
That's what they did. So I don't know. I'll just say to ACP Nation, hopefully the right guy is in there and you stick with the right guy because the pieces are certainly there. This should be a job that college coaches are applying for, that big time assistants and other head coaches are applying for. I mean, our hope is, and Ralph, you and I are basically saying the same thing, that the next coach is in there for a long time, as long as he is winning.
Right. Exactly.
So we'll see. But ACP, they move up to 5A. They are in What region are they in? They are in the 5A Santan region, and I'll say that these regions are they're interesting. They definitely are. I mean, we knew that they were moving up to 5A, and that's certainly a big step. It's definitely a big step, and we feel that that's it's an important step. The population is growing, so it made sense for that to happen. But overall, I think they're ready. We just don't know who the coach is going to be.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's interesting stuff. Casteel no longer, and I like the way. Well, I do and I don't. There's no more Premier Region. I don't know if you've seen kind of the. It's Region 1, Region 2, Region 3, 4, and 5 in the for 6A. But yeah, I want to jump into where Casteel is placed. They're going to be playing ALA Queen Creek, regular Queen Creek. They're that's a tough
regular Queen Creek.
Yeah, it's a tough region they're in. I don't know what to say except that Bushman has he's got a tough schedule going on. So it'll be interesting to see how they split things up.
Now, you were saying that they've separated our schools again, so that you got the battle for Val Vista in one region and Battle of Arizona Avenue in another.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
I'll say I don't love it. I don't love it. I like seeing all the schools in this proximity in the same region. I mean, because they're all competitive. It develops city rivalries. So and they've been together for so long that it would be odd to see Chandler not play Basha or Perry this year. I mean, it's be odd. I mean, I guess there's measuring sticks in different ways, but Perry not playing Hamilton potentially is different, or Chandler. I mean, Perry just beat Chandler twice this year. Now they may not see them this season at all.
Right. I would say this. I love it all being together. I loved it being called the Premier Region. It was until the West Valley rose up, but even still in totality, probably it still was. I think you've got to be careful breaking up the Premier Region because these teams might average 2 more wins a game than they would have otherwise.
Right.
At least because how many seasons have we gone into and be like, oh, here Perry comes into region play at 4-1. Will they get to 5-5? Correct. So, if you're going to break it up, understand that that's going to be taken out on somebody else.
That's right. That's exactly
what would have in previous years. So we'll see. They still have to. I don't mean to be arrogant, but you got to be careful. You got to be careful because the reason this podcast exists is because football in the city of Chandler is very serious.
Yes.
And so if you're going to make it so that Perry doesn't have to take, their, expected 2 losses a year, which they didn't have last year, but expected 2 losses a year to Chandler and Hamilton, and they get to go play somebody else, then that might be 2 wins.
Right. No, you're right. I mean, Westwood does not belong in the same region as Basha. I mean, that's no knock on Westwood, but I mean, I just feel that, it's you're right. The CUSD total wins in the regular season, I think, is going to go up.
Yes, it is.
It absolutely is. So it's good stuff. And then last but not least, the 3A Metro now contains Seton Catholic and Valley Christian. Folks, I will say I'm going to put that game on my calendar. It's a different type of rivalry. It's not Chandler Hamilton, but it is, I don't even give it a name. It's the School of Faith battle, but more so it's been the 2 small schools in our podcast that have had really good years. They played last year and Seton Catholic won surprisingly. We were surprised that the 4A school defeated the 3A school. Seton Catholic has now petitioned down. They are going to be a 3A. They could do some damage in the 3A. I mean, look at
and we've been asking for that for years. Yeah. I'm very shocked that it happened, but very happy for them. It's kind of where they belong. I'm proud of what they accomplished at 4A this last year. But we'd be liars to say we saw it coming.
Right. No, we absolutely.
I thought the longer that they were in 4A, the worse it was going to get. And
Correct.
so I'm not saying they go down to 3A and dominate some of these mountain schools. They didn't when they were at 3A. They had
Correct.
a championship year in 2012. They had a lot of great regular seasons, but their last title is as old as Hamilton's last title.
Right. That's funny. That is funny. You are absolutely correct. I mean, they've got a lot of wins, but they don't have that gold ball. And it's I'll say that Seton Catholic Valley Christian game it's going to be very meaningful. I mean, they've both schools have showed major support for this podcast, and to sit back and be able to watch them play, not just, oh, hey, it's a regular season game, these two teams. It's going to matter in that region. It could be, I'm hoping, well, I was going to say, I hope it's the last game of the season, but there's so many rivalries on that last day of the season, but it's a meaningful game now. It's terrific to see. It really is. It's Ralph, terrific to see you. I mean, so many things. I mean, the next time we get together, ACP will have, I'm not going to say solve the mystery, but they will have hired a head coach who will be able to talk with. Look forward to chatting with him, and just so many things that are going on. It's a surprising time of year with the amount of head coaches. And like you said, Ralph, you pointed out, all 4 4A semifinalists are looking for new head coaches. We've never had 3 CUSD coaches in 1 year leave. That's there's a lot going on. There really is. And folks, it's our job to keep you informed via interviews, via Twitter, via just word of mouth and all of that fun stuff. Ralph Amsden, as always, terrific chopping it up with you. I'm Brett Quintyne. We'll see you guys next week. I can't say next week, next time on the Seton Rivals podcast.